but assuming that you can get it working once, then you should be good in the future.
And you can check the public address that you sent it to. You can run that and check that in the blockchain, and it'll be registered as having a balance, right?
Blockchain.info, type in your address, and it will say, yeah, you got 0.5 Bitcoins there.
But there's no recourse though. I mean, if for some reason you see it there and it's not in your wallet, where's the recourse?
You're right. There's no. It's your own responsibility. Certainly, the software is beta, so there are no absolute guarantees that it's always going to work 100%.
But it's in the.
If something went wrong, then what you would have is you would have a bunch of backups of your wallet file, and you could go to some expert. I've seen services that have this, where they said they basically, you pay them and they take your messed up wallet file and figure it out and get the Bitcoins out of it. Mm-hmm. So that would be your backup solution if something went wrong. Yeah.
How much longer is the presentation? Because I have 2 questions.
The presentation is over at this point. This is just, the only thing I was going to point out is that we did successfully load most of the blockchain at this point. It's only 2 days behind because that's where I left off with mine before. It's 254 weeks, right? So it did successfully load all of the blockchain from the USB drive. So that's proof that works. So what were your questions?
Okay, they might be stupid.
But there are no stupid questions.
That's what they say.
It's a tutorial.
So your thing is 2 days behind on the USB. So do you need to be plugged into with your Ethernet cable so the blockchain can update?
Yeah, you have to. Basically, you need to update it enough to the point where it can see the balance, right? So, like, if I had sent it some Bitcoins 10 days ago, then 2 days behind wouldn't be a problem. Like, I could just connect to the internet and send right away because it just needs to be able to see enough of your Bitcoins that you're going to send, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. And then the other question I have is, I guess maybe stupid. Does it already know what address you're using, or?
Yep. This is a different address from before because I used a different wallet file, but yep, this is the same.
So if you wanted to use the other wallet file, you should not go into your TrueCrypt right now because you're connected to the. Can you go into your TrueCrypt?
You can, but you would basically anything when you have a computer that's got a decrypted TrueCrypt volume and it's connected to the internet, that anything that's on that decrypted volume should then be considered hot. Okay. It's no longer in cold storage. So if you had more files that were in cold storage or whatever, you would want to keep those and keep those, unmount the volume before you ever connect it to the internet. Copy off whatever you need to pull out of cold storage, and then decrypt it and then plug it into the internet. If that makes sense.
So mounting is essentially, so when you mount something, you're making it available to then enter the password, and then it's unencrypted. It's
right.
It's unencrypted, I guess. And then when you unmount it, it just automatically locks it back up again.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So another question I have is so you need a new wallet, now you want to add that address. Is it okay to have a text edit document just on your desktop with
the cold storage address?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
The only concerns that you would have about that are relative to privacy, but in terms of security, any Bitcoin address, it's fine to put it wherever you want to.
So that was actually one of my questions, like generating multiple perceive addresses before you doing this process, so that you have multiple public addresses to give to different people, so they can't, whatever, correlate.
Right.
Well, there's also mixers now too. I mean, they can scramble the addresses to make it more private and so forth.
Sure, yeah, mixers are something that you can use for relevant to privacy. So Bitcoin QT, the way that it handles having multiple addresses for the same wallet file, it only shows one address here, but actually when we opened it for the first time, it created 100 addresses, and it only shows us one. And I can just keep clicking new address over and over again, more addresses, and these all belong to the same wallet.dat file. And it's not creating new ones, it's actually just taking it out of that pool of 100 that it already created before. Now, this is a somewhat important point. With Bitcoin QT, because it creates this 100 addresses and it stores that, if you go ahead and back up the file, then you're good until you use up the 100 addresses. When you get to the 101st one, then it has to go ahead and create a brand new Bitcoin address and a new private key. And that's not going to be backed up with your previous backup, because this is a new thing that we're adding to this pool of 100 addresses. We're at 101, 102. So this is kind of like a silly idiosyncrasy of Bitcoin QT, is your backups can get stale or out of date if you get close to that 100 address mark. But if you're like me and you're not doing a whole lot of transactions, then it shouldn't be a problem. And I expect that this issue will be addressed in the next few months or the next year or whatever. There's hierarchical deterministic wallets that would deal with this issue, and a bunch of other stuff. So, but that is worthwhile.
Can you just back up until like 99 and then back up to something
Well,
else?
you only need to back up once between 1 and 100, but then after that you would have to back it up every single time a new address gets added.
Why would you need 100 addresses? I don't understand. Like,
Well, some people are doing a lot of trades, and
but
the best practice for Bitcoin in terms of privacy is to never reuse an address. So
Really?
in that, they're saying the one Bitcoin address should only ever receive some Bitcoins and then send them on, and it should never do more than that.
So you wouldn't have, see, I thought you labeled like rent, for example, and I use this address for my rent and landlord.
Yeah, and
Or
lots of
something.
people, the majority of people do reuse addresses, but this is what the Bitcoin developers say is,
Okay.
well, if
Wow,
your
that's-
best practice is to never reuse an address.
And that's for security purposes, not
For
so
privacy
much.
addresses.
For privacy,
For
not so much
privacy
security.
reasons, because, yeah, it's not a security thing, it's a privacy thing, because if someone looks at the blockchain, they can see that coins are sort of being shared between these different addresses. They keep getting funneled from the same places to the same places, and so they can sort of correlate those addresses together and see that someone owns those same addresses.
But if you're not worried about privacy, it's no big deal.
Exactly, yeah.
But the first address and the last address, if I send money to the first address and then check on the blockchain the last address, will it show the value, the total value on the private key, or will it only show the first address, money was sent to the first address? You know what I mean? So if
Are you
I
talking about
gave,
Bitcoin QT, or are you talking about the blockchain?
I'm just talking about, so right here we have all these different addresses, they're
Yeah.
all going into the same wallet. You send
Yes.
money into any of these addresses, they all go to the same
And
wallet.
Bitcoin QT it treats them as a pool, so it shows like a balance for all of them. But it's not gonna like break it down.
But if you were to go into the blockchain and blockchain.info and plug in one of those public addresses, would you see the balance that was sent to just that one
Yeah,
address?
just that one. Blockchain info has no idea that these are, there's any relationship.
They're not connected, that's right. Gotcha.
It doesn't know that. Cool, well,
Good stuff, man.
great.
I'm more impressed with you group to go together.
It's definitely